volunteer here in Juneau. And on behalf of AARP Alaska, I'd like to welcome you to the 5th in our 6-part brain health webinar series. So this is the next to the last one. Today, our guest speaker is mindfulness guide Carol Conant. We're so excited for you to join us today and so excited to have Carol with us. Thank you all. But before we begin, I'd like to share a few technical tips. Those of you who have been with us for a while know all of these, but some of you may not be as experienced with Zoom. You can use the mute unmute button at the bottom of your screen. And if you please keep your microphones muted during the program, and you do that by clicking on the microphone, and then you'll see a red line go through it, which means you're muted. And then if you want to talk, if we say you have a question, we'll ask you to unmute yourself at that time. The next button is the video button, where you can be on camera or turn your video off. It saves, streaming. It's better streaming if you turn your video off during the presentation. And there'll be a red line through this button when you're off camera. And then toward the end of the presentation, we'll ask everybody to come back on so that we can see you and so that we can all say thank you to Carol. Participants, if you click this button, you'll see the list of everyone who's on this call. It would be helpful if you rename yourself if you're not logged in with a name. I think pretty much everybody has a name, but when you log in on your telephone, sometimes it doesn't show who it is. So make sure that you have a name there, and you can do that by clicking the 3 dots to the right of your name. That lets you put your name in there if it's not in there already. The chat button is next, and we'll be asking people to respond in chat. Most of you have already done that. Oh, and I see we have a visitor from Missouri. Very nice, welcome. To use the chat, click on the icon and type in the box and hit enter when you're done. And again, if you haven't done it already, type in the community you're joining from today. And this is where you can also put your questions as we're going along in the program. If you have questions for Carol, you can type them in the chat box. The reactions button, if you click on this icon, you'll see that you can raise your hand. It allows you to raise your hand, and you can do this if you want to ask a question verbally. If you don't understand something or you want to clarify something, you can raise your hand with that button. And a note, we're recording this program, and we'll be sending out the recording and all the links from the chat after the program. So you won't lose those when the program's over. You'll be able to find them in the email that we send you. With that, AARP has asked me to share a disclaimer that this session is intended to be informational only and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should always seek the advice of a physician or another qualified healthcare provider regarding your personal health and before beginning or changing any treatment, activity, or program. AARP is not responsible for any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information provided during this event. The information we cover today is intended to help people make informed decisions on how to lead a lifestyle that supports brain health. So specific for brain health today. AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization for people over 50. We have 38 million members nationally and 77,000 members across Alaska. AARP's mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age, to optimize their power. We encourage people to save for retirement, stay healthy and fit, including brain health, build strong relationships, and participate in meaningful activity. AARP Alaska works on aging issues for Alaskans over the age of 50 through advocacy, working on national issues like Social Security, Medicare, prescription drugs, and at the state level, we're advocating for telehealth, a sustainable state budget, senior grant programs, and healthcare. Through education on brain health, technology use, veteran services, gardening, I heard something about an upcoming gardening session, fraud prevention, caregiving resources, and financial planning. through member engagement by hosting social groups, movies, guest lectures, exercise groups, and many more events. And through community action, we have local community action teams in Juneau, Ketchikan, Anchorage, and Mat-Su working to make their communities more age-friendly. So if you live in any of those communities, reach out to your local community action team and see what you can do to get engaged. So let's start out with some good news. Until recently, the prevailing wisdom, scientific wisdom, was that the human brain was pretty much fixed early in life. Experts believed that at birth, our brains had all the cells that we were ever going to have, and that was it. But the good news is research has found that regardless of our age, our brain is constantly changing and can generate new nerve cells. So I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks. Quite a bit is under our control, and we can do a lot to change our brain health and improve our quality of life. Experts say that only about 30% of physical aging can be traced to our genes, and the rest is up to us. AARP's Global Council on Brain Health has identified 6 pillars of a lifestyle that support healthy brain. These pillars are the topics that this series is based on. Our first in the series was Eat Right. Then we went to ongoing exercise and engage your brain, be social. Today we're managing stress. And if you tune in next Friday, we'll be talking about restorative sleep. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for today, Carol Conant. Carol lives in her hometown of Seward with her husband, 3 children, and a family dog. You can find their family sailing in Resurrection Bay, climbing mountains, or venturing into the backcountry with backpacks in the summer months. Very active outdoor person. In the winter months, you can find them skiing trails or ice skating on local lakes. They love harvesting from the garden, the ocean, and the bounties of the wilderness. Carol also practices mindfulness and yoga. Carol appreciates creating space for growth and healing in her personal practice and finds incredible value in sharing tools and techniques for all people. She is all about art and culture. I don't know how she has time for all art and culture with all those other activities, but she's all about art and culture, supporting it, learning about it, and making it. She loves to create a hygge feeling in her life, and hopefully she'll explain what she means by that more, and welcomes the time to share stories over a cup of tea and traditional foods. Carol guides mindfulness for elders at the Tukchak, I hope I got that close, Carol, Native tribe, and has been interviewed by Jim Mead TM podcast on the benefits of meditation for anxiety and depression. And with that, I'm turning it over to Carol. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you so much, Linda. Yes, that's Katuchak Native Tribe in Seward. And I just want to first say thank you for having me and recognize that I live and I work on the homelands of the Sukpiak people. So my journey of mindfulness, coming into the role of being a mindful guide, to manage stress and depression, and ultimately for brain health, really, I had to experience the stress, which led to different outcomes in my life, which resulted in depression and anxiety, and really me delving into the explanation of why that was happening within myself, and tools and techniques that led me to be able to manage my stress in my life, and combat that anxiety and stress that I was experiencing. And I'll share more about my journey as I talk about these topics. So how does stress affect our moods? Stress is designed, it can be beneficial, but it can be also very harmful. So acute stress is when we experience something that where we have to address something and be focused, and maybe someone runs a stoplight and we have to put the brakes on our car, and we reacted really quick, and within our brains there's a stress hormone that's released called epinephrine, and this is good for us. It helps us react under times of pressure. But if that stress is prolonged, if it's chronic stress, and it's continually, our brains are continually releasing these stress hormones of epinephrine and raising the cortisol in our brains, the outcome is us feeling stressed, and untreated chronic stress can lead to poor lifestyle, which results in sometimes lack of sleep or anxiety, tension in our muscles. This can affect our heart and our heart function, leading to heart disease, high blood pressure, depression, weight gain. These are all things that through science we have realized that chronic stress can contribute to our lives. And often when we realize we are at this point of chronic stress, we feel, or at least for me, I felt like helpless. How do I change this different aspects in my life to be able to manage the stress better? And so that started me looking into mindfulness and lifestyle changes and yoga. These were things that I was attracted to myself to be able to manage my stress better. Stress can come in many different ways. You know, we can overwork ourselves. Work can create a lot of stress for us if we don't have healthy boundaries. Putting things off and waiting till the last minute, and then things pile up, and that can create a stress in our life. People who we take care of in our lives, whether that's children or spouse or an ailing parent, this can create stress in our lives if we don't have healthy boundaries, or we're continually trying to please people outside of ourselves, and overextending ourselves can lead to feeling stressed. So let's take a look at the next slide. Thank you. So tools for lowering stress. I talked a little bit about the hormones in our brains, the chemicals in our brains that are released when we experience stress. And the epinephrine, that adrenaline that's released, if it's released over a period of time where it becomes chronic, cortisol levels in our brain rise. And this can affect many things in our lives, as we discussed: depression, anxiety, headaches, muscle tension, sleep problems. All of these things can compile, and everybody is different. So how you manage that, or how it manifests in your own body, can look different for each person. So tools for lowering that stress and to release those feel good hormones in your brain. There are ways to do this with lifestyle changes that release the feel good hormones. And the feel good hormones, there's 4 that I'm going to share with you. That's dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin. And these are released when we do activities that create a sense of wellness or calm in our brains, and it releases. And I'm going to share at least 4 different lifestyle changes that you can do even today, this week, if you're experiencing stress in your life and you're looking for a way to lower that. So the first one, movement. This can look different for everybody, but the idea is that You move daily to get your blood flowing. That doesn't mean that you have to break a sweat, but that means that you are maybe taking a walk the dog daily, or going to the swimming pool, gentle stretching or yoga, taking a bike ride, a stationary bike ride, going to a class at the local gym. These are just some ideas to move your body. And yes, Tai Chi, that's a great idea. Listen to what feels good within your body. And for some of us, that means breaking a sweat. For some of us, that, that elevation of physical activity is not right for our bodies. So taking a more gentle approach could be better for your body. Yeah. Tai Chi in the pool, water aerobics. The idea is just to move, sleep. When I first started to actually recognize I was having chronic stress, elevated cortisol levels, my release of my happy hormones was way off. Sleep was one of the first things that I addressed. And my mom was the one who said, Carol, buy nice sheets, get a new comforter. She gave me a pillow that supported my neck, and that simple lifestyle shift made a huge difference in my life. And I was consistent, started with consistency, and when I went to bed and when I woke up, and that made a huge difference in my ability to lower stress, because my brain was able to repair and restore during that important sleep time. Nutrition. This is important, and I'm sure we all know that eating healthfully and drinking plenty of water is beneficial to all of us. And, I'm going to say it again, it's dependent on your body. Some people really like to be a part of a diet program, but that's not for everybody. If that actually creates stress in your life, then choose to have more a diet that speaks to your body type. And then to mindfulness. And this is really an area that changed my life particularly. When I realized I was starting to feel this chronic stress, that was my initial reaction, was to actually enrolled in a course for yoga and mindfulness. By trade, I'm a teacher. I've taught in public schools, charter schools. I currently work education outreach for a tribal consortium in the Chugach region. And so this course I took was education based, and it taught me a lot about what was going on in my mind, what was happening in my body as a reaction to stress. And this allowed me to understand why mindfulness worked and the way it did. And from that point on, I started to practice, and I used different tools. I started with an app. That was great for me. It was something I could do on my own. It was guided. I was able to carve out some time in my day to find some calm and peace and just reconnect. I've used other tools. I've taken other courses like mindfulness based stress reduction. And then ultimately, the mindfulness course that really helped me was transcendental meditation. And they all together help. The point is that there's a lot of tools out there for mindfulness. And I'm going to share a few with you and give you some links after we actually go through a meditation practice this morning. So that's an overview of tools for lowering stress that have worked for me and could work for you. All right, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so the benefits of mindfulness, we're going to focus on that. And I can identify with each and every one of these. Once I started to consistently practice mindfulness. And that is exactly what it is. It's a practice, it's an exercise for your brain. Much like you would exercise for your body, this is an exercise for your brain. And I immediately, once I really started to consistently practice, I noticed that my focus was improved on specifically projects that I was working on. I was able to regulate my emotions better. And this was wonderful. I'm the mother of 3 children, and at the time that I was starting to delve into mindfulness, they were all elementary age, and so there was a lot that I was managing. And when it was at the peak of my stress, I had a hard time coping and dealing with frustrations. And unfortunately, it was my loved ones that took the brunt of that. And so once I started to meditate, I realized I was able to deal with stresses that were coming at me in a more calm and responsive way, instead of responding, instead of reacting. And this was something that my family noticed, and which validated the practice for me. Like, wow, okay, this is really working for me. And it reduced that stress. And I'll talk a little bit more about how when you do meditate and allow your brain to, just leave out the worry, the thoughts, your brain is actually repairing. It's taking the unnecessary things that are no longer serving you, and releases that from your brain. And it's the result is the benefits of mindfulness, and creating a more inner peace within yourself. And then my relationships, I was able to focus more on, and really be present in those relationships. And it started to heal some dissonance and disruption that had taken place because I had been experiencing stress for a chronic period of time. All right, we can go to the next slide. So I experienced this, all these benefits, and my mind was blown. I was amazed with how this simple practice changed how I was able to navigate. And I thought to myself, at the time I was working at the Katuchek Native Tribe for an organization called Chugach in their cultural preservation program. And much of what I did was ethnographic recording of elder stories and sharing that with the youth. And through stories that were shared with me, I recognized and it was shared with me that there was trauma experienced, acute trauma, and then also people were experiencing intergenerational trauma. And I really took this to heart. And long story short, we ended up offering at the tribe transcendental meditation training. Excuse me. And excuse me, I need to drink water. So we invited elders of the tribe and shared with them this mindfulness workshop, and that there were TM teachers there to teach them. And we got a great response. People showed up, people went through the training course, and we continued to meditate. And the results were people being able to manage stress due to different things in their lives better. And there's a couple quotes down here. One is from Elder Eric Clock. And he noticed a lot of nice energy and a sense of well-being. He said he wished he would have done it years ago because it's pretty nice and beneficial. And Eric had recently retired when he first took this course. And he said to me, he said, boy, this sure would have been nice to have when I was, you know, had more, had stress in my life related to work, because it's something that you do on your own. You don't need the fellowship, but if you do crave that, there it is available. And then Joanne Mark, the tribal clerk of Katuchek Native Tribe, she explained that she feels more calm inside, releasing anger and hurtness. And she noticed after she meditated, she felt lighter from both her shoulders and her heart. And she said it was a good experience. And I can identify with Joanne. When I get stressed, I definitely feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I can experience that tension in my shoulders and my neck. And so I really like what she had to say. Okay. From here, we can move to the next slide. Great. So I'm going to guide you through meditation. This should take us about 10 minutes of guided meditation, and it's a little bit of a sampling of different meditation techniques. So the first technique we'll do is a body scan, and then I'll move directly into observing thoughts. And the observing thoughts guided meditation is a more traditional style of meditation, of clearing your mind and viewing your thoughts as passing thoughts. Actually, the first time I ever meditated was in college, and there was a Buddhist monk, and I don't even know how it all came about. I was young and curious, and his explanation to me was view your mind as a blue sky, and as thoughts come through the sky, just observe that they're there and let them pass by. Try not to think those thoughts, just observe that is a thought and let it go. And if your mind does attach to a thought and you start thinking and you realize, oh my goodness, I'm thinking, just bring your focus back to that observation of thoughts. And that's the practice right there. After that short practice, I'll share a practice called Breathe It Out. So before we begin, let's do an internal check of how we're feeling. I invite you to share a 2-word check-in, and this can be how you're feeling today. And then we'll do another 2-word check-in after our meditation. So today, and I'll just start and you can follow if you like. Today, I'm feeling focused and eager. I'm eager to share with you. So those are my 2 words for right now. We'll see how I feel after our meditation. Then we can see if anybody else would like to share. Go ahead and type it in if you'd like. Okay, thanks, Patrick. Okay, we can move to the next slide. Thank you for those who shared their 2 words. And this is something that you can do yourself, maybe it's a habit shift or a lifestyle. How am I feeling? Like, check in with yourself. Sometimes I call them weather reports, and you can identify with how you're feeling related to the weather. So maybe you're feeling partly cloudy today, or maybe you're feeling sunny. All right, so with this next slide, I jumped ahead and explained everything that we would be doing. So I invite everybody we're going to start by, we'll take 3 collective breaths, and then we'll move into our body scan. And I I'd like you to find somewhere comfortable, whether that's sitting in a chair or if you're more comfortable laying down. This is guided, so you'll have your eyes closed and you can listen to my voice. So I just find somewhere comfortable and we will take 3 collective breaths as a group. So first breath, inhale, fill your lungs. And exhale, feel a little tension release. Next inhale, I want you to take a deeper breath in this time. I'm going to extend your belly, fill up your lungs a little more, and exhale. And this last breath will be the biggest breath you've taken of the day. Fill up your lungs, take a little sip of breath, and exhale. All right, so I invite you to close your eyes. And we're going to start at your toes. This is called a body scan. This is something that you can do on your own. This helps regulate physical tension and emotional tension that we have in our bodies. So as you breathe in, start down at your toes, breathe into your toes, and breathe out. Your next breath, you're going to breathe up through your toes into your feet, up to your ankle bones. And as you breathe out, feel that breath move through your feet. And on your next breath, you're going to breathe up through your calves, into your knees. Maybe you're envisioning that breath swirling around in your knee joints. And as you breathe out, let that breath wash over the front part of your shins. On your next breath in, you'll breathe up your shins, past your knees, to your thighs. Breathe in. On your next exhale, let that breath wash over the back part of your legs. And then on your next inhale, breathe up through your legs again. And we're going to focus our breath on our pelvis, our pelvic bowl. Take a deep breath in here and exhale. Envision the breath swirling around in your pelvic bowl. Exhale. On your next breath, I want you to breathe into your belly. Maybe this breath you extend your stomach. And then exhale out through your belly. Next breath, I'm going to ask you to breathe up through your spine. Feel that breath wash up through your vertebrae to the base of your shoulders. These can be deep breaths. And then exhale. Okay. Now on your next breath, I want you to inhale, and we're going to move our breath to our solar plexus at the base of your ribs, and really breathe in here and exhale. On your next breath, we're going to breathe into our heart, our chest. Breathe in and breathe out. From here, breathe into your shoulders. And on your next breath, I want you to breathe down through your arms, shoulders, arms, elbows. Maybe the breath circulates in your elbow joints. Your next breath, breathe down through your arms into your hands. Breath in. On your exhale, breathe out through your fingers. And on your next breath in, you're going to breathe through your fingers, up through your hands, your wrist joints. Maybe this breath, stop at your elbows again. That breath circulates in through there. And if there's any tension in your body, this is the time to be paying attention to it. Next breath up through your arms to your shoulders, all the way to your neck. And as you breathe in, feel the breath through your neck, through the back of your spine, base of your skull. And exhale. And breathe into your face. So let's focus on feeling the breath come into your nose. Maybe you can breathe into the lower part of your face. And exhale when you're ready. And on your next breath, breathe in towards your forehead, between your eyes, your eyebrows. You feel that breath. When you're ready, exhale. And our last breath of the body scan, we're going to breathe up through the crown of our head. Breathe in, and maybe you feel the warmth at the top of your head. Any sensations that you feel. Take a couple breaths here. All right. So thank you for joining me in a body scan. This is something that you can do on your own at home. I'm going to move into observing our thoughts. So our thoughts are incredibly powerful. And we have thoughts that guide us through our lives. They literally shape the structure of our brains. And many of us have a hard time turning that off, our thinking mind. So during this short practice, we're going to observe our thoughts, and it teaches us to witness any of these thoughts in our mind without attaching ourselves to them. And through this practice, we're going to enhance your capacity to be with your thoughts and not being swept away by your thoughts. And this creates a healthy separation between ourselves and our thoughts. So observing your thoughts consists of focusing your awareness on the process of thinking rather than the thoughts themselves, like we talked about the blue sky. So a powerful analogy is to consider your thoughts as clouds and our minds as a sky. And as we observe our thoughts, we simply watch them float by through our mind as if they were clouds. We don't get caught up with those thoughts, and we simply notice that they are thoughts. If you find yourself getting sucked away on that train of thought during these times, don't worry. That's the practice. Simply say, this is what I say to myself, thinking thoughts. And this allows me to focus back in on bringing my mind back to the awareness of the full sky of my mind. So this practice is something that you can do on your own, observing your thoughts. I typically will dedicate 20 minutes in my morning and afternoon to this type of practice. But when I started, 5 to 10 minutes was was enough time for me. And so I encourage you to find what works for you. We're going to move into the next sampling of meditation called Breathe It Out. And so sometimes we feel overwhelmed with our thoughts and our emotions and sensations going through our bodies. And rather than hold on to this discomfort, each and every one of us have the power to release whatever is not serving us through our breath. So like we did the body scan, if there were any sensations of tension or discomfort or numbness, this is the area you want to focus on and breathe into. Take that area and breathe into it. And so for me, I experience tension in my shoulders. So when I breathe it out through a meditation practice, this is the area I'm typically focusing on, my shoulders and my neck. So find that area and breathe into it. And this can be at your own pace. And really focus on the release of any emotions or tensions, feelings you may have. This can be anger, it can be guilt, it can be sadness, these feelings that are no longer serving you. Take a deep breath in, connect to those emotions, exhale, and set them free, let them go. And do this a couple more times. Okay. So from here, you want to take a breath or two, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You can start to move your fingers and toes and come back from our meditation. And when you're ready, I invite you to share 2 words for your internal climate. And if you decide, you could also do the weather report. If you're feeling, let's see, maybe you're feeling partly cloudy or rainy. Calm, centered after. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. All right. Well, folks, that was our meditation practice today. And typically when I guide those meditations, they are broken up into 3 different workshops, but give you a little sampler of a body scan, observing your thoughts, and then the last technique I showed you was to breathe it out, to become not only observing of your thoughts and feelings, but the awareness to identify that and then release and let go. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So with our mindfulness practice and the other elements of reducing stress in our lives, this always helped me, and this is something that I share with quite a few people, is to shift our lifestyles through tiny habits. And these tiny habits are developing self-awareness and self-management. And a tiny habit is something that I like to think of as a routine shift. So maybe that looks like incorporating um, incorporating mindfulness practice in your daily routine. Or maybe that looks like journaling after your meditation or before you go to bed. Maybe that tiny habit is establishing um, um, a bedtime and a wake up time for your body to regulate its circadian clock and be able to function better. So, through observing what our reality is and accepting that reality and saying, oh, this could be contributing to my chronic stress or my the stress in my life, which has resulted in anxiety and depression for me. Like, what is the reality of that? And sometimes accepting that reality can be difficult, but it's something that we can do through mindfulness and exercise and creating some clarity in our mind. We're able to accept that reality and then create a new reality, and that's where the tiny habits come in. And there's a list of them there that I particularly like and have incorporated many of these into my own life to create a less stressful existence for me. And then to invite that shift into your life through that breath and movement work, I have found has been very effective. All right. And I believe here we have come to our resources. So I talked a little bit about each one of these, and I'll give a little bit more explanation. So there's plenty of mindfulness apps out there. Calm is the one that I found probably about 6 years ago that I started using, and it was a simple way for me to manage stress. And there were these particular ones. There's varying times, and there's different guides, and there's music, and there's bedtime stories. I used to, I'll play the bedtime stories for my kids, especially when they were little, to help them sleep. And so this was one that was really effective for me, and I still use every once in a while. And so I'll put I'm going to put the websites in chat for folks. So there's the Calm app. Now, disclaimer, I think you can get the free Calm app, but there is a monthly membership that gives you more access to more opportunities through the app. Each one of these does cost money. So I'm not going to say, do this. This is just something that these different mindfulness resources worked for me. And I did a lot of research before I actually committed. So there's my disclaimer that this is just what worked for me. And the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction. I took this course in Seward, and it was paid through our community wellness coalition. And so it wasn't at cost for me or any of our community members who took it, but I know there is a cost, and I want to say it's a couple hundred, maybe $300 to take the course. There is, I'm going to put in the official website for folks. And this training really opened my eyes to, oh, thanks, Patrick. Opened my eyes that there were different kinds of meditation. I didn't know, this training was great John Kabat-Zinn, he designed this from very like scientific approach, very Western, to help with people with stress, anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and it proved to be very successful for people. And this course is a real overview, general description of how your brain works and why it functions the way it does under chronic stress, and how mindfulness can help with the reduction of that. It's kind of all in the name, but I thought it was great, and I would recommend it to anyone. And then also transcendental meditation. Once I took the 8-week course, the MBR at MBSR training, I started to look into other meditations. I was like, it blew my mind, and through a lot of research, I found transcendental meditation and contacted the teacher in Anchorage, and I had a long conversation with her, and I was skeptical because there's a cost for it. And I ended up being able to get the cost covered through my insurance. Now that's a whole nother story in itself, and quite humbling, because I had to go through a process of proving that this technique was going to benefit my mental health. But I'm glad I did. And then I learned, and the important thing is that you're consistent with your practice. So I'll add in that tm.org. Oh, looks like Patrick already put it in there. So thank you, Patrick. And so those are the techniques that worked for me. And that's really it. That's all I have for you today. So I really thank you a lot for inviting me to be here and share my experience. And we can open it up for questions and comments or discussion.
Carol, I wanted to share that we did have a question, and our first session was on eating right. So we had a great dietitian go over lots of different things about diet considerations for brain health. But do you know of specific diet thoughts or ideas for stress reduction? I know that hydration is one simple one, like staying very well hydrated. Do you have any thoughts on diet as well as it relates to stress?
I do. And so, with my yoga training, and I like to research and, get the answers from all different areas of knowledge. And, I've done some study on Ayurvedic lifestyle and the science of life, which is Ayurvedic, and different body types responding to different diets and the way we metabolize. And then also Ayurvedic goes into eating seasonally. And so this is, if I'm going to follow something, that's typically what I follow. Is some of you may have heard of the doshas and the body types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. The Ayurvedic philosophy, which is where yoga is born from, the 8 limbs of yoga, and from that mindfulness, dates back 5,000 years to the root in India. And most of this wisdom has been shared orally. But as far as diet, keeping mentally to help your brain, I know for me, I like to start my day with like a grain. I usually have my oatmeal with blueberries, and I know there's different foods that are really beneficial for the brains, such as we have an advantage here in Alaska. Salmon is really high in those omega-3s and really good for your brain. Blueberries also, we have that growing wild here. And I know for myself, I pick a lot of blueberries, and we do a lot of fishing, and And I want to say, I think it's important to also state, like when we know where our food comes from, that creates a lot of a connection to our food, which then I think also gives us the sense of uh, well-being when we know where our food comes from.
All right. Thank you so much, Carol. Boy, I really appreciate that. Such wonderful information, and those different meditations were wonderful. I'm a real fan of Calm. I use Calm every morning, and sometimes if I wake up in the middle of the night, I go to Calm and it gets me back to sleep. So I just really appreciated that. Thank you so much. We also have a number of resources. AARP has a number of resources available. And so you may know about these, but aarp.org/brain health has lots of information and videos that anyone can have access to. You don't have to be an AARP member. The Global Council on Brain Health has a report and a video for each of the 6 pillars of brain health that we've been talking about in this series. And AARP members can also enjoy the Staying Sharp resources. And Patrick put that link in the chat. So you can enjoy those Staying Sharp resources, including free cognitive assessments, brain games, videos, recipes, and much more. So be sure and check that out. And so all of those links are up there in the chat now, and we'll be sure and send those out to you with the link to the this webinar. So there's some extra resources on managing stress. Here's 4 articles that you might want to check out. And remember, again, we'll be sending these out. You can take a picture of them if you've got your camera handy, or click on them and save them. But we will be sending an email following this webinar with a link to the recording, the slides, and a link to all the resources that have been discussed in the webinar. So you'll get all that. So thanks for participating in today's program. Especially thank you, Carol. We hope you found this session helpful. And we hope you will let us know how you liked the program by completing the poll that just popped up on your screen. And if you have any ideas for upcoming webinars, things that you'd like to see us do a webinar on, please type that in the chat. So fill out your survey, press submit, and we'll get those coming in. The final pillar to brain health, we're coming to the end. I can't believe it. The final pillar to brain health is sleep, and we'll be working on sleep next week. Restorative sleep contributes to a healthier brain, and we'll learn all about that next week. If you want to turn on your cameras now so we can see your face, so that we can thank Carol for sharing her knowledge with us today, and thank all of you for showing an interest in brain health. And we hope that you'll share this when you get the link. Share it with your friends and family so that they can learn what you learned today. And we hope to see you next week for sleep, restorative sleep. And thanks again, Carol. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. That was great.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We have a couple minutes if anyone has any real quick questions, I think.
Yeah.
If Carol's up for it.
I totally am.
I think everybody's shy.
Oh, that's fine. I was very pleased to see